so thank you all for being here. This is my first time here at the event. I think for the first time the event is being organized. Is that correct? All right, so thank you all for being here. My name is Ian Balina. Today I'll be talking about a data-driven approach to ICO investing. Quick show of hands. Who here is an ICO investor? That was probably a pretty odd discussion. Next question, who here is having an ICO? Okay, there are a few people in the crowd having an ICO. All right, so today I'll be covering how to use data and analytics for both the ICO investor and for the projects after having an ICO. How can you guys truly use that data? So I'll go through a quick bio on myself and who I am, for those who don't know who I am. I'll go through 2017, which I call the year of FOMO, fear of missing out. Then I'll go through and talk about how to find a better way to invest in ICOs using data and analytics, and how to find a good ICO. What makes an ICO good in terms of perspective for an ICO investor? Then we'll take questions. Disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm really showing my experience and opinion investing in ICOs. Definitely do your own research, consult your own advisors when investing in ICOs. ICOs are very risky. You can't lose all your money. Only invest what you're willing to lose. Alright, so who is Ian Balina? Anybody know who I am? Quick show of hands. Alright, a few people in the crowd. Alright, so I'm a blockchain and ICO investor. I invest full-time in ICOs. ICOs are my passion, they're my hobby. I also have a huge following online from investing in ICOs. I'm very transparent. I do everything live on the air. I have weekly live streams where my audience comes online, and we go through live on the air and review ICOs. And we've basically began this movement called token metrics. How to leverage data and analytics to analyze ICOs. So I'll be covering that during the course of this presentation. Prior to becoming a full-time ICO investor, I worked 4 years at IBM in analytics, 3 years working with Watson Analytics, and 1 year as a sales executive in open source analytics. So I love data. Prior to IBM, I worked as a consultant in IT at Deloitte Consulting, and prior to that, I was a software developer. All right, 2017. The year of the FOMO, fear of missing out. If you study this chart here from CoinSchedule, we'll notice that from January all the way till June, then till July and September, every single month, the amount of funds being raised by ICOs are basically going towards the moon. Right? It's basically exponential growth. Right? So over $3.4 billion were raised by ICOs this year alone. Right? If we take a look at the top 10 ICOs of 2017, ICOs like Filecoin, Tezos, EOS, Bancor, Kik, right? So many ICOs are raising so much money to a point where everybody out there who has an idea now wants to have an ICO. Everybody and their mom is having an ICO now, it feels like, right? This is why I call the year of the FOMO. And I'll walk through my own personal experience of becoming an ICO investor, and basically when I had what I call my coming to Jesus moment in ICO investing. Right? So if you take a look at these 10 ICOs of 2017, right? I invested in 8 out of these 10 ICOs, right? And out of these 8 ICOs, initially when I was investing in ICOs, I was just chasing the hype. I was just chasing the FOMO. Oh, Tim Draper backed this ICO, I'll invest. Oh, this other smart money is backing this ICO, I'll invest. Oh, this ICO has 60,000 people in love with it in the community, I'll invest. I was just chasing the hype, the trend. But after going through all these different investments, I realized that I wasn't making money. At least I wasn't making the amount of money I wanted to make. And most people weren't making money as well. Right? So me working at IBM, working in analytics and big data, I love using analytics to solve problems. So I said, hey, you know what, Ian? Why don't you try applying data and analytics to ICO investing? And the ironic thing is, out of my 8 investments on this list, the only one that has made me money in terms of 2x or more, in the sense, although some ICOs aren't trading yet, was an ICO where I used data and analytics. That was Kyber. Right? Although Kyber was a very hyped project, the data backed that up. All right. So if we see this tweet here from ICO Alert, on November 1st, 51 ICOs launched on the same day. 51 ICOs. That's not in a month, that's not in a week, that's in one day. Today, as I stand right here, 40 brand new ICOs are launching today. 40. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, today. 40 ICOs. Right? So if you're an ICO project, how do you differentiate between all this noise? Right? Because now investors are getting oversaturated. I think most people here have full-time jobs, you have a life, you have family, you have kids, right? How do you go through and read all these white papers? Who has time to read 40 white papers today? Show of hands, right? So it now becomes a chore, right? So how do you, and the investor is always trying to find that next Neo, that next Stratus, that next Ethereum, right? So they don't want to lose efficiency. How do you go through all those 40 ICOs coming out today, but still find that diamond in the rough? And I think a fast way of doing that is leveraging data and analytics. Who here knows about Moneyball? All right, so for those who don't know, Moneyball is basically a movie and a book, a very popular book, which I love, that basically goes through the field of sabermetrics. Sabermetrics is basically using analytics and data in baseball, right? And this came about because you had teams like the Yankees, who have all the money in the world, can go out there, buy the best players in the world, pay them the top dollar. But how does the underdog, like the Oakland A's, compete with the Yankees when they don't have the same budget? Right? So they use analytics to find the best players by paying the least amount of money. So I was going through this entire background. I said, you know what? Why don't we do the same thing with ICO investing? Why don't we leverage data and analytics? And as the average retail investor, or maybe you're an angel investor, how do you compete with the whales, right? Because events like Basic Attention Token, where the whales bought that ICO in like 35 seconds, how do you compete with that? How do you find the ICOs before they become mainstream, before they blow up, prior to them going viral? So me and my audience basically kind of created this movement called token metrics. So if you ever hear anybody mention the word token metrics, there's probably somebody who follows me. All right, so what are token metrics? Token metrics are basically using data and analytics to analyze ICO investing. And the strategy is to basically go out there and we take data points on the best performing ICOs of all time. So we go on sites like tokendata.io, ICOstats.com, we go through Bitcoin Talk forum threads, and we go through all the best ICOs in terms of return on investment, in terms of ROI, from the investor's perspective. Then we sort them and plot multiple data points, right? Both quantitative and qualitative data points. And we try to figure out what exactly made those ICOs great investments. What exactly do those ICOs have in common, right? Then we put all of this on a spreadsheet. So if you've ever seen anything called the ICO spreadsheet, this is my ICO spreadsheet. It's publicly free available spreadsheet that I share with everybody. This is kind of where I built most of my following, right? Because I go through, and this is the actual spreadsheet I personally use to invest in ICOs, and which has helped me go from, as I mentioned earlier, about 1 out of 8 ICOs being profitable, now to about half of them being profitable, right? So I go through, and using these different data points, I create a grading system, a scoring system, right? Based off of prior historical data. I know the finance world hates using historical data, right? But as a data analyst, we like to go through and find out what data points truly mattered. Then we grade new ICOs based on this grading system. And based off of that, we decide on what to invest in. All right, so what data points do I look at when investing in ICOs? So I personally, when I invest in ICOs, in terms of quantitative data points, I look at things such as the token price, total tokens being sold during the ICO, token supply, what percentage of tokens are being made available to ICO investors, the hard cap, how much is the ICO planning to raise, the total cryptocurrency market cap at that point, at that date and time, and the size of the community. If we go through and look at the other qualitative data points, such as the idea, the advisors, the team, are they a platform, a currency, a dApp? Do they have a prototype? So we take all these different data points and we score every single one of them and create a grading system, which holistically then gives us a confidence level on each ICO to invest in. All right, so what makes a good ICO? So for me, looking at the best ICOs of all time, although given this is crypto and the sample size is very, very small, if we take the top 22 best ICOs based on ROI, 9 out of 10 of them had a prototype. Now this seems very, very obvious, but for the average ICO investor, right, when you're busy out there chasing FOMO, chasing the hype, chasing that recent press article, that sexy video, that sexy white paper, right? Remember, 9 out of 10 ICOs that did well had a prototype. The second best factor are what I call all-star teams. Now, this is a very subjective measure and way to evaluate ICOs, but the way I look at all-star teams are, do they have anybody on their team who's worked for a well-known company that's credible? Are they working on any well-known projects in their domain, right? Any big open source projects? Are they core developers, right? And same thing with advisors, right? About two-thirds had all-star advisors. And lastly, the hard cap. The amount of money they're looking to raise actually matters, right? So I think this is one of the reasons why the ICO, especially the last few months, there's been a huge pullback in terms of investors investing in ICOs, right? Because in the first 6 months of the year, any ICO that was walking could hit their hard cap. Right? Any ICO could just say, hey, we're launching an ICO, and they could hit their hard cap. But in the last month, lots of ICOs have been getting a reality shock from investors, right? Because now ICOs can barely hit their soft cap. And the best example are 2 examples. Mercury Protocol. A project has VC funding backed by Mark Cuban, so there was initially lots of hype and lots of FOMO. They had a very small hard cap, only raising $24 million. But as we speak right now, they've only raised $3.8 million in a month, and they're on the verge of almost not hitting their soft cap. They have less than a week to hit their soft cap, meaning that they'll have to refund their funds to ICO investors and cancel the entire ICO. So a project backed by Mark Cuban could be canceled, right? So that's the shock and I guess the distance between ICO projects and founders and ICO investors. The second example is a project I'm actually bullish on, and I've gone through and reviewed them on my channel, but I also didn't invest on them during the ICO. I got them on the exchange called Horizon State. It's basically voting on a blockchain. They came out the gate with a hard cap of $60 million. They're trying to raise $60 million. And investors said, you know what? You guys are delusional. We're not giving you $60 million. Over the course of a month, they only raised $1 million. Right? That shows you the disconnect between ICO investors and projects. Right? So investors, I would say, are getting a lot more educated. Right? 6 months ago, I would say the average investor could be defined as chasing the hype, chasing fear of missing out. Now I'm seeing ICO investors, especially in my community, because I have a community of over 4,000 highly targeted ICO investors, and I can see the evolution of them over the last 6 months. They're getting a lot more smarter. As opposed to just chasing the hype, they're using data and analytics as well to invest. Right? Before making any kind of investment, they analyze what's the actual ROI. Am I better off just holding Bitcoin or Ethereum? Does the project have a prototype? What are the token metrics? Right? All right, so as I see all these different ICO investors getting smarter, and I see all these different ICOs having issues hitting their hard caps, now I'm seeing this new trend where ICO projects are now also starting to use token metrics and data and analytics to evaluate the best way to structure their ICOs from end to end, from pre-sale all the way to post-sale. Right? So for example, I made lots of different companies that are trying to pivot to the blockchain. Right? Yet they have no experience investing in ICOs. They've never done an ICO. Some companies, embarrassingly, have never actually bought a crypto token before, yet they're trying to have an ICO. How can you have an ICO when you have no experience investing in an ICO? Right? So now they're coming to people like us who invest in almost an ICO every single week, minimum, right? Who are using data and analytics and coming to us for advice in terms of how to structure the token metrics, how to build a highly engaged investor community, right? And what truly matters from the investor's perspective. Right? So I'm starting to see lots of projects start to respect the average retail investor, but also the angel investors. Right? So I mentioned earlier, I have an angel syndicate group that invests in ICOs, and we invest up to $3 million in ICOs. But we have a particular way we invest in ICOs. So I'm seeing kind of this meeting in the middle between the average retail investor and ICOs, and they're all coming together to leverage data and analytics to make their end goals a lot better, right? Because projects now are seeing the Horizon States coming out trying to raise 60 million, only raising $1 million. Seeing projects, really big name projects like Mercury, trying to raise $24 million and on the verge of getting canceled by not hitting their soft cap. They're trying to figure out ways to entice investors to invest in their project even more, and they want to leverage data to do that. Disclosure, I'm advising 2 ICOs, Reddit Network and Go Network, on just this, on how to use data and analytics in their ICO. Go Network is a project I'm very, very bullish on. They were the winners, one of the winners of Earth Waterloo, the biggest Ethereum hackathon in the world. Very, very highly competent team. But even though they're a very, very competent team, they have engineers from Google, Amazon, SAP, EA Sports, BlackBerry. They have the technical chops, but they still lack that perspective of using data and analytics and how to structure the token sale, how to structure something that investors would like to invest in, right? Because most ICOs, when they figure out their token metrics, they're just random numbers they pick. They pick a random cap, pick a random token supply, pick a random price. There isn't really much thinking put into that, right? But if you leverage data and analytics and say, okay, you know what? If we're trying to raise X amount of money, historically, what's been the best token price to set? What's been the best cap, the best percentage to give to investors? Right, so all these different things you can now leverage data to figure this stuff out. All right, so if you want to learn more about using data and analytics, I have a spreadsheet freely available. You guys can check this out if you go to my website, ianbalina.com/spreadsheet. This is a live, dynamic spreadsheet that gets updated every single hour. Right, so I have plugins that go in and pull in the real-time price of Ethereum, Bitcoin, and the total market cap of different projects, and it constantly goes through and updates the scoring system. Right, so every single week I have my top ICOs of the month, top ICOs of the week, and I share this publicly with my audience. And if you want to leverage data and analytics, you can also personally just email me, and I'll give you a copy of the spreadsheet so you can analyze and score your own ICOs. All right? All right, so with that being said, if you want to learn more about me, you can find me on social media, @DiaryOfAMadeMan. That's my Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everything, same handle. With that being said, thank you for your time. Any questions? Yes?
Can you describe the different kinds of tokens? Utility tokens, protocol tokens, currency tokens.
Right, okay.
So many types of.
Yeah, so the question is, can you define the different types of tokens, right? So I personally, when I'm investing, especially right now in this current market, I'm just focusing on purely infrastructure projects, right? So basically new blockchains and protocols, right? You basically have new blockchains, or you have blockchain platforms like Ethereum, Stratus, Neo, right? Platforms where other developers can come and build on top of and have network effects. Then you have protocols, right? Things like Filecoin and so forth that are basically also providing infrastructure. They're basically the plumbing of blockchain technology. Then you have your utility tokens, or dApps, distributed applications, right? So those are applications running on top of those platforms, right? So for example, every ICO that runs on the Ethereum platform is almost a dApp, right? So the different ways to invest in, I right now, in my personal opinion, feel like dApps are very, very risky to invest in. The data also backs that up as well, right? Especially in this particular market right now, right? So I myself have only really been investing in blockchains and platforms at the moment. Right? My last 2 investments, which I've done pretty well using data and analytics, were Radiant Network and Power Ledger. Right? And I think those are really big infrastructure growth investments. Yes?
I'm David from Current Launching ICO. You said that 2017 is the year of FOMO. What would you say 2018 is going to be the year of?
The year of, well, I'm kind of biased. I would say the year of token metrics. I mean, because I definitely do think the market has shifted, right? It's kind of like, imagine being around when Bitcoin was $10. Now Bitcoin is 6, 7 grand. I think it's kind of the same thing with ICO investing, right? I don't have a chart here, but the actual returns, the first day returns of ICO investing have decreased by over 500%, I believe, right? So I think like probably early in the year, you could invest in any random ICO, get a 5x first day. Now it's just a 1x, if you're lucky, right? So I feel like the bar has been increased because if we go back, right, it's increased for 2 reasons, I believe, right? Oversaturation, everybody and their mom is trying to have an ICO, right? 40 or more ICOs are launching today as we speak. Now imagine 40 ICOs a day, 30 days, that's over 1,200 ICOs a month, right? That wasn't the case a year ago, right? So now it's a lot tougher to stand out, right? Now you have ICOs competing for attention, giving out large bonuses, right? Giving out all kinds of different things, right? Having all kinds of bounty programs, proof of caring, like QuantStamp is having, right? So ICOs really have to innovate to stand out, right? So I think definitely in 2018, it's going to be a lot tougher to raise funds, right? You have a lot of ICOs not hitting their caps, investors getting smarter, right? I think the fork really woke people up and said, you know what? Bitcoin is still king, right? So why should we invest in your ICO? Will your ICO outperform Bitcoin or Ethereum? If the answer is no, then we can always catch your tokens on the exchange post-ICO. There isn't really an incentive to get in during the ICO. Yes?
You talked a little bit about the positive metrics. You think that we feel positive ICO returns. What are some of the negative indicators, red flags?
Well, the opposite, not having a prototype, right? So I personally, and also the data backs it up, I don't like what I call white paper ICOs. ICOs that are just an idea, right? So people who just have an idea with no shipped code, no nothing, just trying to raise money, right? So development and product before raising any money is the best way to go, right? Then also weak teams, right? Since everybody's trying to have an ICO, right? I mean, so I think right now ICO investing is almost heading towards VC investing and angel investing, right? Where people are now investing, the average retail investor who has no VC experience, no angel investing experience, is now starting to think like an angel investor. Right now they're looking to back core teams, good teams that can execute on an idea, who have ideally some form of product market fit, right? So I think those are the two things that matter right now. Yes?
Do you see a problem with pre-sales affecting an ICO price? Because essentially ICO is just a number that they give out, a token, how much they raise.
Right.
Pre-sale always is more important. You know, talk about ICO, that's what an average investor knows. But if you're an insider and you're getting a certain percentage off with that effect, you would say like the lifetime of an ICO going forward.
Yeah, I think so the question is, does the pre-sale affect an ICO? And I think it does, right? I mean, this space is still relatively new. There's always innovation happening every 3 months, almost, right? I think one of the best models of an ICO has done has been 0x Project. They basically, I think 0x and Civic are two really good ICOs in terms of how they structured their sales, right? To have as many people invest in a fair manner, right? I know Civic did have a pre-sale, but that was just an allocation, right? But I think those are two models most ICOs could learn from, right? They basically created a whitelist, right? Then every ICO after that began having a whitelist as well, because they saw how well that went, right? But I think pre-sales, especially large pre-sale bonuses and discounts, incentivize people to take profits early, leading to tokens dumping post-ICO, leading to the average retail investor who missed out on that pre-sale to pass on the ICO knowing they can pick it up on the exchange on EtherDelta, right? Because now we have decentralized exchanges for a much cheaper price. A reason why Mercury Protocol has had such a bad ICO, in my opinion, right, was because I think they kind of messed up. This could be partially because of maybe the lack of blockchain experience and ICO investing, but when they give out tokens during the ICO, they didn't lock up their tokens. So as soon as people were buying tokens, it was a month-long ICO, but the first day, people went on EtherDelta and was selling the tokens to a point where the tokens were cheaper on EtherDelta by 20-25%. So people who are trying to invest in the ICO, what incentive do they have to buy them at a premium on the ICO when they're already trading on the exchange for 25% off, right?
Would you suggest, let's say, as an advisor for new ICOs, if you're going to do a pre-sale with larger, if someone's bringing $1 million to the table as a store, would you advise them to specifically lock up those tokens? I would say maybe like 6 months or 1 year.
Yeah, I mean,
because you saw what happened, something like metal.
Yeah,
That, where there was a complete dump because of an early investor, he just went on the market, dumped, he crashed the price 1%. So something like that would be
Right.
something that you would advise an ICO.
Yeah, so the question is, would I advise an ICO to lock up tokens or have some kind of restriction on tokens? I think that it's kind of a fine line. right? I mean, I personally would like to just have some kind of vesting schedule for ICO holders, right? Especially now when I look at ICOs, I also penalize ICOs that have large bonuses and have no vesting schedule, right? So for example, there was an ICO recently, Vest, really good project, although they have no prototype. But other than that, good project, right? They give out a 150% bonus with no vesting schedule, right? It doesn't matter now if it's the best ICO in the world, it's just that no vesting. All right, time is up, I have to go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.